So going back to our conversation, I forgot to press the button. So no recording for the first 10 minutes. As I was saying, we can see the connection between our action and the life that comes, you know. So if we get drunk, or if we take drugs, if we if we start really going down, and declining in every sense, psychologically, physically, mentally, and so on. So we're going to suffer. We know that. So there is definitely a connection between our actions and our destiny. We know that. You agree? Yeah. Okay. And then what is your doubt in regards to your initial question?
It was more that one's expectation for, say, I'm looking at now from a jiva perspective, and we do actions for the rewards of the act, for the outcome. So a more mature way of looking at it would be just, it's karma yoga. Contribute to the field, love the field, and don't worry about
Totally.
if your next manifestation is going to be good, bad, or different, because what you're doing is really in appreciation of the field rather than.
And the twist for the karma yogi, what changed is that the karma yogi still does action to accomplish certain goal. My action has to be, as a karma yogi, has to be aligned with Dharma, with these universal laws. Right? So I want to conform my actions to Dharma, and I need to conform my actions with the goal I want to accomplish as well. Okay? So I'm doing that. My goal is also aligned with Dharma, and I'm doing Dharmic actions, aligned with my goal. So far, so good. But for the karma yogi, Lin, the goal that we want to accomplish is a secondary goal. You understand? Because the primary goal of the karma yogi is spiritual refinement, spiritual elevation, purification of the mind, and so we are doing actions. We have our goals, but our main goal, the main purpose of our actions is to grow, to purify, to develop. You understand? So, and then we keep that in perspective. So what happened? Then this secondary goal, which is, I want to have a new house, I want to have a relationship, I want to have this. It can even be, I want to have enlightenment, And then we have to understand that this enlightenment is something that is not really in our hands. What is in our hands is our spiritual growth. Okay? The thing about the spiritual development, spiritual growth, or mental, emotional purification, and so on, it's much more under our control than anything in the field, in the samsara field. Because in samsara, there is competition. You are always competing with other people for things, for stuff, for positions, for prestige, for anything. But your inner work is directly connected with you, and your efforts are going to produce spiritual growth in any case. And that only between you and yourself, you understand? Your own efforts. But of course, it's going to be related to your expectation as well. If you want to have an expectation like, oh yes, I start doing some meditation, study Vedanta last month. Oh my God, why I did not get moksha yet? So it depends on one's expectation as well. But if we are really honest and clear, we can see that we are growing. So you see it, someone like Claudio that got into Vedanta months back, right, Claudio? Something like that. So a few months back, and he has been saying here in this group. So how much he feels that he's already, you know, accomplished
Yeah, yes.
in a growth. You understand? So it works as soon as long as we really put effort into it. You know, so our intellectual effort to contemplate, analyze. You know, follow the logic, applying the logic, and so on. So if we really work with Vedanta, we just keep growing, and it's very noticeable. Okay, so but as far as, oh, I want to have moksha, I want to have this, you know, even a spirit that is not really under our control, but our steps forward, our growth is directly linked to our spiritual effort. Okay, and we want to use the means of knowledge that is the most efficacious, you know. So if we come to Vedanta, we came to a whole and complete body of knowledge, teaching methodology that promotes spiritual growth like nothing else. You understand? So we have that merit to have come to Vedanta, and now it depends on how much effort we put into it, and then we can notice it. Oh, I'm growing, I'm patient, I'm humble. You know, I'm not demanding anything from Ishvara. So I just living my life. And if I do not complete my work, I mean, completion, that is, it's a very vague thing, you know, this whole talk about moksha as well. So what is moksha? What is freedom? How free one is, you know? So is there anything such a thing as 100% freedom or 100% purification? This is something that is questionable to me as a jiva, to jivas in general. Only Shwara would know that, you know, if you need another round or not, for example, yeah, in that sense. So we just do our work, and we're happy with the way we are growing, and then we get blessed with self-knowledge, and we continue doing our spiritual work, and enjoying more and more the privilege, you know, of living with this sense of freedom in respect to the circumstances of life that which are not in our control. So we don't want to have expectations, because it's the worst possible setup, you know, to expect that things should be according to my way or my notions, even on the spiritual level. You know, oh, I want to have this and that experience. I want to, you know, well, no, we just take whatsoever Ishwara gives back to us as the results of our efforts, of our work, our, you know, each one of us according to our possibilities, you know, our level of understanding, our level of clarity or purification, and so on. So you were saying something like, so I wonder if there is anything like, oh, I'm going to be good here, I'm going to do all these dharmic actions, and then in the next life I'm going to get a better life. Yes, you will. There is no doubt about that. If we come back with a better birth than the previous one. If we do the work we have been doing, you know, so we come back in a better family, in a better circumstance, in a better culture, even more conducive to our spiritual elevation. That's the promise of the scriptures, and it makes total sense that the more we put, the more we get, and then when this medium, this body mind, this physical body is no longer fit for me to continue this process of karma, of cause and effect, actions and results of action. If I need another means, I need another body or medium. So I'm going to come back, and my vasanas are going to establish, as we saw in our previous class, is going to configure a new medium, a new body mind, and it's going to come into a custom designed environment with parents and, you know, relatives and culture and time, and everything is just like custom designed to our vasanas. And our vasanas, this work we are doing is the work of purification of vasanas, you know, creating these beautiful spiritual sattvic dharmic vasanas. So there is no doubt about that. And we can see it. Somebody's coming, and we can see it. We can observe that. You understand? Because we see the way we live our lives, the way we live our day to day, it somehow impacts the next day. You understand? So you have a beautiful day. You did a lot of good work. Your actions were pure, and your mind was kept focused and more subtle, and you kept balanced and walking in samsara with balance, and then you have a good night of sleep. And then next day you have a good day beginning before you with a lot of potential for more growth. On the other hand, if we have a terrible life, a terrible day, we are just bring the same notion of our entire life, and then the next life, we are just bring it to one day and the next day. If we have a terrible day from the beginning, I had a fight with someone early in the morning, and then I had come out, and then I was so pissed off, and then I had a car accident, and then that made me even more mad, you know. And then I had to rush to the doctor because I had a little challenge physically as well. And then when I come home, there were a bunch of other problems waiting for me, and then I was so freaked out, and then I went to bed at midnight, and I could hardly sleep. Understand? And then how is going to be my next day? It's going to be I'm going to have a momentum of this previous experience, interactions with the field, that's going to be conditioning my next day. And then I have to be very careful not today, because there will be a tendency for a continuation. There will be a tendency for a momentum of stress and anxiety and bad mood and so on. And people who can easily fall into this kind of mental, emotional condition, sometimes remember, this was a memory that I picked up from my past. I know it from where I was very young. So I would go in some space like that. One day went wrong, and then sometimes it was difficult to come out. I used to observe it. You understand? It was difficult to turn things around, and then to come out of that space and have a mind a little bit more clear, and begin responding a little better, more intelligently, more wisely, with the field, interacting, And so some people, they may go in some mental, emotional state that they stay for weeks and even more, Some people never come out. So we can see it. So there is a lot in our hands, which there is a link between my personal efforts or my,
Right. And I see it in the day to day as when things come up that perhaps in the prarabdha that just would have knocked me off before, and now I'm just bigger than the problem in some way, so that even if that sanchita has some stuff in store, if the subtle body is more prepared, then it's lessened. The effect is lessened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing about self-knowledge. The value of self-knowledge is translated. The real value translates it in ability to take in the adversity, the ups and downs, the pleasures and pains, the favorable and the unfavorable, with equanimity, with balance, with elegance. You take the difficulties, without losing your balance, without reacting negatively, emotionally, and strongly, and so on. So that's all there is to self-knowledge. I mean, self-knowledge is good, but it's only as good as it reduces this kind of, Swami Paramarthananda likes to put it, mental, emotional insulation, mental, emotion, strength, resistance against the shocks of life, So otherwise it's just academic self-knowledge. If every time, so we see our growth. So this is another way for us to measure our development. So how we are handling the challenge, crisis, the difficulties of coronavirus, among many others, and so on. You know, we can definitely see our progress if you really look into it, uh, examine it. You can see our progress cannot be denied. I mean, regardless on how big or how small, but we can see that because if we put some effort in that direction, it's unavoidable, it's inevitable. Know that we're going to reap the results. Hello, Caroline. So how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Mm.
It's adventurous and interesting expressions all around us, right? When I was listening to Lynn talk, I was thinking about such a great way of saying it, that I'm aware of myself differently in the context. And so the context isn't so influential or overwhelming. Because when you understand yourself in the context, it doesn't define you. You come from your place. It is as is, but you have self.
Yeah, you are the self. Everything is just appearing within you without touching you. That's the beauty. Once you understand that you are consciousness, and then you understand that nothing touches you. Nothing touches you because you are that accommodates and sustain everything like space. Space makes room for all objects without being touched or pushed.
What do you mean touched? Can you describe that more?
So does your body gets affected by things that happen around you?
You're asking me.
Yeah, the body gets affected, right?
Yes, right.
So does your mind gets affected by events that happen around you?
Depends on whether or not I'm paying attention to my mind.
Well, the mind gets affected, as we know. Gets affected. So now there is something about you that is not affected like the physical body and the subtle body and the causal,
okay.
Because your unconscious mind also gets affected by the events around you. Yeah? But there is something about you that is never affected.
Yes.
So that's what I mean when I said
okay.
Once you understand that you are this light of consciousness, and then you know that nothing touches you. You understand?
Yes, I do.
They may touch the mind, and you may even see the mind getting a little bit excited or a little bit concerned, and then immediately say, hey, mind, you don't touch me, mind. You understand?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the benefit of self-knowledge, to know that you are the light behind the mind,
And it's a nice image, or it's a nice idea that it's touching, because if it's touching, it's separate. Like nothing touches you as a tool. Is it's a great embodiment of something that is not you. If it's trying to touch me, it's not me. It reinforces, the word touch reinforces what you're saying.
Well, I mean, the best way for you to understand it is that everything appears and disappears within you, within within you as consciousness. Okay, everything in the scope of your conscious existence, all events appears and disappears, and this conscious existence is what reveals and illumines and knows everything that's happening around us. Okay, there is this factor operating in us all the time, keeping, maintaining, enlivening, and so on, our body-mind construct, So this principle is that in which everything is projected, superimposed on itself, on the light. In the same way, pictures on the screen, way objects appear within the space without touching the space, the space It's just that this consciousness, it also pervades and sustains everything because it has one of these properties, which is pervasiveness. It pervades everything. There are a lot of similarities between consciousness and space. Space is a product of Maya. Consciousness is that which is the fundamental principle, conscious existence before Maya, let's say. So consciousness is also all pervasive. It's consciousness, it's existence, and pervades Maya and in all the elements, space and so on. So when something pervades everything, you may get the impression, oh, and then all the superimpositions on me, since I'm pervading everything, all the superimpositions on me is going to affect me. Okay? Then we have to look into these metaphors or examples. So when we shoot a light into the screen and then we see all these pictures, cinema, screen. So do those pictures really affect the screen, touch the screen? Is there any blood? Is there any action? Is there any dirt? No. So the same way, although I'm pervading everything, okay, nothing touches me. Why? Because we are talking about two orders of reality of the one non-dual reality, which is Satya. Mithya is a superimposition that exists not apart from you, but at the same time, it does not touch you because we are talking of two orders of reality. You understand? So none of these touch you. The same way, none of those pictures are going to really affect or touch or dirt the screen. You understand? That's what it means to be the substratum. We are the substratum of Mithya. You understand? We are that which pervades everything, and then within the scope of our existence comes Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat, the universe. None of that happening us and never touching us. So once we understand it clearly and we begin examining these logics, and then we can really testify to it. Yes, there is something about me that is not really touched by anything. When this certainty of self-knowledge is present, you start enjoying this freedom that is born out of this understanding that nothing can really touch me, because light in which everything appears and disappears, things are apparently experienced and known and so on, So, and we are untouched by any phenomenon. The mind may be a fact, but what is the difference between the mind of the Jnani and the mind of the Ajnani? Because the Jnani, even if his mind is a fact, which happens, but a small fraction of what used to be, but even when the Jnani has its mind a fact, he's not identified as the mind, and that itself already insulates him from the affection or affliction or any kind of reaction of the mind. You understand? Because I'm not the mind, so I'm free, and then immediately the Jnani recompose itself, reportion itself, and okay, nothing can really affect me. So the mind came up with a reaction, but now I'm here, and I say I found my posture again, the knowledge is clear and so on. So that's the coolness of self-knowledge.
I think that's really a good metaphor, that somehow that really sinks in. Nothing really touches me.
Yeah.
Like that. All these different ways of trying to understand it.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. That the idea of touch really helps you to see all of it in that way. I hadn't used that word in that way. So it is, the metaphor is the right word for it, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and the beauty, just to bring more elements to this construct, we are trying to construct a metaphor, and the more three-dimensional it becomes, the better it is. So when we look about I am that in which everything appears, I am the substratum, I pervade everything, nothing touches me. And then we can also look into all the objects that appears within me. They appear within me, you know. All of these, there is something about these living creatures we call jivas. We are objects with three bodies. And then among the three bodies, we have the subtle body. So I consciousness have somehow an affection for the subtle bodies of my jivas, that every time I pervade the subtle body of my jivas, I show with reflected consciousness. I become a sentient being, a reflected consciousness, a conscious existing principle that is aware of its environment, you know. So once you understand that, you begin also losing attachment to your body, because you know I am the light, and I don't need to be afraid of losing this piece of equipment, because I shine in all equipment. I shine in all my jivas, you know. I experience through all my jivas. So this understanding, you know, it reinforces this coolness, this kind of dispassion in reference to your body, or and neutralize this fear of mortality, you understand? Because, you know, what's the problem? I mean, I shine in all jivas. I have a love affair with subtle bodies. Whenever I pervade the subtle body, I shine with sentience. I'm a little bit mixed up with my English today, and I mix up these two words between Portuguese and English. How do we say in English? Sentience. Is that? Sentience. So I have this affection with subtle bodies. Every time I pervade subtle bodies of my jivas, I just shine, you know? I start become a luminous sentient being. So therefore, there is no question, there is no concern about or attachment, you know? Okay. Any other contribution? Karen, you were saying something about the metaphor. Which metaphor you were referring to?
Really the word touch. Nothing touches me. Yeah, I guess maybe for me, that's a big word, because I guess I feel like I'm always afraid of, you know, what's going to get me, you know. It's kind of the same as touch me, harm me,
impact me, affect me.
yes. So
a better word is affect me, because touch, it gives a sense of a physical touch, you know.
Right, tactile, yeah.
Affect. So nothing really affects me. We can say touch in the sense of being affected by, you know. So nothing really affects me. Nothing really touches me in that sense, you know.
Right. I feel like the word touch brings it to the jiva level a little better for me, you know.
Yeah, no, but the jiva is always going to be touched by things.
Yeah.
The mind is always touched by things. I mean, even though the mind cannot be really physically touched, we can never touch a mind of anybody. We cannot touch my mind, you know. The mind cannot be seen or touched or perceived by the sense, but can be perceived by the mind itself, or by the intellect, if we will, if we wish to say. But there is something which does not really belong to the jiva. That principle that cannot be affected or touched by anything that occurs in media. In media, everything touches everything else. Everything impacts everything else in media. Everything is impacting and changing and modifying something. It's a dynamic field of constant interaction and everything affecting everything else. But there is something in me that is not affected by anything.
Which is
That does not change.
Which is looking at it from the macrocosmic level, really. Nothing touches me on a macrocosmic level. Touch/effect. Yeah.
Well, no, it's not even macro micro. There is the macro and micro are two aspects of media. The macrocosmic is related to the totality that exists as potential, you know, or even everything manifests is the macro, you know, cosmic, everything. So, and then when we call micro, when we look into the realm of the jiva, which is his subtle body, causal body, subtle body, and physical body. So we are talking about something that is beyond the macro and the micro. We are talking about this thing that is never affected by any experience, any event, any circumstance, you know? And that does not belong to the jiva. You understand? So it does not belong to us. I mean, the jiva, we know this Mahavakyas, these statements from the Upanishads that says that the jiva is the self. But it does not mean that the jiva, the body, mind construct, is the self. It means to say that the essential nature of the jiva, its really essential fundamental nature is Brahman, is the self. Yeah? So when we talk about the jiva level is the body mind, and it's all the time being impacted by events in the field because it belongs to the same order of reality. The key here is this: the same order or a different order of reality. You understand? If you go into deep sleep and then you enjoy yourself, and then there is a dream, and then in the dream somebody's trying to attack you and rob you and so on. Okay, and then you get up, you know, all excited and afraid, and you know, and stressed out. So in this ordered reality, in your bedroom in the middle of the night, there was no question of anything happening. You understand? So there are two orders of reality. But when you come out, you say, "Oh, thanks God, it was a dream." So the jiva lives in this meteor order reality in which everything is impacting body, mind, condition. You understand? But there is something about the jiva which is his or her fundamental, essential nature, which is completely independent and free of everything that happens in media. Okay? So there is something in you that is not affected by anything. So you see that your jiva in the awakened state is not affected by the robber of the dream state. When he becomes a dreamer, he is affected by the robber. When he comes out of the dream, he is absolutely not affected. So why? Because we are talking about two orders of reality. You understand? Huh? So likewise, there is something about you, about all of us, that is never affected by anything that happens in media because it's not of the same order of reality. You know? This other order of reality called media is a superimposition on you as such. You consciousness, this superimposition, of course, without touching you, and then the jiva called Karen appears. Okay, and the jiva, Kara, is trying to understand her fundamental nature so that she can play in media without living with this constant affliction of I am this jiva body, mind, and I know that I am limited by time, by space, by properties and qualities and talents and all of that. So we want to be free of this identification with the body mind and claim our existence as consciousness, because that is the only way that we can only then continue to exercise our secondary identity or nature as a jiva, from the platform of the knowledge I am Satya, I am never affect, and then that knowledge affects the way jiva sees and interacts with the world, you know, because now I know my fundamental nature. It's a different order reality. This world can just evaporate from a moment to another. The whole universe or this planet, it never affects us because we belong to that which is the substratum of Mithya and far beyond, infinitely beyond this little universe that we know. The scriptures say that this universe, this cosmos, is a small little thing in the infinite existence of what we think that the universe is big, the cosmos is big. It's nothing compared to the immensity of consciousness, you know, which is beyond time and space, of course. So nothing can touch us in Mithya. Mithya is just a little thing that's happening here, you know. So, but we need to understand what this I is, you know, what this Brahman means, what this awareness, consciousness means. It means our awareness, and we know our awareness because we experience it reflected in my subtle body. Don't you experience your awareness, your consciousness, Karen?
Yes, yes.
So this consciousness, it is conditioned by the mind, by everything that is there configuring, you know, your subtle body, your memory system, your notions, your ideas, your impressions from the causal body. All of that is there constituting what we call I, the jiva. But if you really observe it carefully, you can see that this consciousness that is going to reflect on your subtle body, and then it's going to produce awareness of the world. This awareness is going to be colored by the the elements of your mind. You understand? By all those emotional, mental, intellectual contents of the mind is going to influence the way you interpret, you see the world, you experience the world, okay? But if you really examine it, you will see that this light of consciousness, although it apparently gets colored by the contents of the mind, it is free from the contents of the mind. That's when you have to begin discriminate between the light and its reflection. The reflection of this light, it somehow it borrows the contents of the mind, you know, and then it appears as human consciousness, the mind, you know, the jiva. I am conditioned by my program, my conditioning, my notions, my concept, all of that. I see, I know that there is a consciousness, but my consciousness is somehow, you know, superimposed, you know, with a lot of notions, ideas, prejudice, and bias, and so on. But the light of consciousness is pure. Okay, it just gets colored by the content of the subtle body, but the light is pure. So, and as we go through this process of purification of the subtle body, we begin to experience more and more this clear reflection. When we say that a reflection of consciousness on a sattvic mind is a mind that is freer from all these mental, emotional, intellectual contents that somehow color its reflection. You understand? So we can, in those moments, we can see very clearly, wow, you know, I am this light. And that's why people love Samadhi, you know, Vivekachudamani Samadhi and Samadhi, because you see, ooh, consciousness is shining here, my mind is calm and relaxed, sattvic, you know, there are no prejudice, there are no affliction, there are no expectation, there are no fears, and so on. And then I can see how beautiful you are, light of consciousness. I'm enjoying the light of consciousness. And how I experience it, ananta, bliss, peace, fullness, satisfaction. But once you understand that you are this pure light, and then you don't mind anymore samadhi or not samadhi, because you know that even when I'm shining on a mind which is influenced by a lot of tamasic and rajasic contents, I'm still shining myself in a mind, and I'm going to see the world colored by the contents of this mind, but I know I am the light, I'm the pure light, because my knowledge is clear, it's firm, you understand? Does it? Karen?
Yes, that's good clarity with it too. Thank you.
Hello, Ronaldo. So any contribution?
Yes, Arlindo, I have a question. You are telling good afternoon, good morning, or good night for everybody.
Yes.
Yes, my main goal is to purify my my mind and to grow spiritual and to become free, to get
Right.
moksha.
Right.
Yes, I'm doing my job. I'm free most of mornings. I'm dedicating this time to study the scriptures, listening your classes. I think I'm doing my job, but I'm continuing being affected against some vasanas. I have some power for vasanas that come again and again and repeat, and I'm not able to object these vasanas because it's very strong. And why is so difficult to internalize these teachings? Actually, my life is very nice. I'm very calm. I'm having a beautiful life, but there are some vasanas are very difficult. If I'm the self, why is so difficult to internalize this? I try to remember, but it's like a train. If there is I don't know the English word, but it's like I'm the station and the train's coming. It's like a Vasana situation, and then the ring comes for I go inside of the train. And it's like a desire comes. It's very difficult to object and to stop this.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, it's
Could you
because
explain a little
yeah,
bit more about
absolutely, yeah. So these vasanas, they live. I mean, the first thing to understand, Miranda, is that not all vasanas are bad. So the bad vasanas are the vasanas that cause mental perturbation, mental agitation, mental disturbance. So the minds, the vasanas that brings about mental disturbance, agitation, or mental depression, those are not good vasanas, you understand? So we want more sattvic vasanas, vasanas that, over time they are going to be operating our mind and they are going to be producing more and more mental clarity and focus and peace and so on, contentment. So those are the vasanas. But there are these vasanas from 30, 40 years before you begin doing your spiritual work. I don't know how old you are, but those vasanas, they still live in your subtle body, in your causal body, you understand? So those vasanas, they are going to be gradually neutralized to the degree that you submit your mind to these teachings. And then you gradually, you contemplate, assimilate, integrate, and then when you see this knowledge, this assimilated knowledge begins creating new tendencies in you, new vasanas in you, This knowledge is going to be neutralizing those vasanas because the vasanas are compressed knowledge, conscious knowledge, cognitive knowledge, you understand? And when we repeat some actions which are based on our thoughts, it becomes a tendency, a habit that later on is compressed as vasanas, as small, bits of information, files, really. So we have all these pieces of mental, emotional, intellectual data, data in our causal body. and they keep influence the conscious mind, the subtle body. They appear with, as a thought, and a lot of the time with a certain degree of anxiety or affliction or fear or desire or discomfort or anything, So these mental perturbations is what prevents us. That those are obstacles for us to keep this knowledge alive in our minds, because they disturb the mind, and then the mind lose its perspective, lose the Vedanta vision, you understand? So we need to purify the mind. And this is a gradual process, Miranda. There's no way we can speed it up. We need to keep doing our work, knowing that this process is a process that requires some time. Of course, unless we are highly, highly qualified. A highly qualified is a person that comes already with a very scientific mind, with very good spiritual vasanas, a person who experiences minimal mental disturbance as it interacts, or he or she interacts with the field. Those individuals, they are rare. Those individuals, they just get liberation very quickly. I had to go through 20, 30 years of work to improve my mind, you understand? To develop more sattva and get, transform, convert sattva. The spiritual work takes time, takes effort, and we need to know. When we come to Vedanta, we all very transparently and honest. We say that to every one of us. We say, it takes work, So we need to know it takes work, and the reason that we don't enjoy the fruits of this self-knowledge right away is because of this load of ignorance-based vasanas that are still crowding our causal body. Understand?
I'm enjoying a lot, Arlindo, these teachings. It's like my life has been changed a lot since I am in contact every day with this capture. Thank you very much I'm so glad that I am with this teaching. But in some situations, some vasanas, of course, I'm trying to control, but it's very difficult. I just leave. Okay, again you win, but next time let's see if I'll be able to manage. And then yes, it's like if we are repeating, I'm repeating, and then
And then you need to recompose yourself very quickly when these vasanas disturb your mind. You come back, and then the first thing you have to remember is, I'm not my vasanas. The first thing you remember, I'm not my vasanas. I still care to have a good set of vasanas working for me, but I'm not my vasanas. Because for as long as we say, oh my God, I am my vasanas, you look at me, you understand? And then you are feeding, you're nourishing those vasanas, So you need to cut that connection with your vasanas. You don't own them. You know that they belong to Ishvara. Ishvara is the field. It has present your vasanas to begin with. You start working out these vasanas, and some of them, they become monsters. They become habits and addictions and whatever, But I'm not my vasanas. This is I did not create it. This is the design of the field, So you're not your vasanas. You care to have better vasanas work for you. So never keep engaging. Hello, look at me, I'm not growing. So again, I was taking for a ride, and it took me 1 minute, 2 minutes before I realized that I was getting disturbed. No, you should remember not to engage the vasanas as if they are you, or if they are my vasanas. They belong to Ishvara. I have a certain relationship with my vasanas because I have to respond to the previous vasana, and to the degree that I respond, I'm going to either reinforce a vasana that I do not want, or I'm going to minimize the vasana that I do not want. So that responsibility you need to know that we have. But yet we need to be gentle with ourselves, because as you know, some of these vasanas, they are really big, they're strong, they're tough. So be gentle with yourself, know that it's a process, and there's no, now I understand you're not complaining, you are just saying, so there are some vasanas that are tough. Yes, there are some vasanas that are tough. I don't know if you ever heard Ramji talking about his vasanas, that 10 years after his self-recognition, still he had some vasanas giving him a lot of trouble. And he knew who he was, he knew he was not his vasana, but yet he was fed up to be, having those vasanas pushing him around and disturbing his mind or creating conflicting karmas, so that later on he had to deal with conflicting karmas. So some vasanas, they hang around even after once have a hard and fast self-knowledge, you understand? And this all belongs to Ishvara. And then once this self-knowledge is clear and well established, I'm not my vasanas. And then when these things happen, you don't own, you don't identify, you don't really say, oh, it's me, it's mine. No, you just say, okay. And then now, there is some conflicting karma to work. Okay, no problem. I take full responsibility for any conflict, and I'm going to work any karmic situation out. Okay, I take responsibility. I don't have no problem to work. And next time I'm going to try to filter certain vasanas that are conducive not only to mental and emotional disturbance, but also to create bad karma that later on takes a lot of energy to clear. You understand? So we want to live a life with the least possible conflict. So we want to have good vasanas work for us. We need to develop, discipline and this willpower and this power of understand, so that we begin filtering these vasanas that are not working for us, are not really being conducive to my spiritual growth. We need to have that power to control those vasanas, and that grows as you keep doing your work. In the beginning, it's like that. You have no idea how many times I had to go on my knees and ask forgiveness to my wife. On those days, I used to be very, very attached to her. Just the idea that she would leave me would make me like trembling of fear. And she knew that. And then I would misbehave with her and be a little bit aggressive or violent. And then what she used to do in the old days, she used to go to the bedroom, and then when I would note that she was away for some time, and then I would go, she was packing up her suitcase to go. And then I was, oh no, please, I will never do it again. I will have a control over these vasanas. I will never say such a thing. I will never explode. And then after some time, 1 month and so on, I used to misbehave again. And then again, I had to go on my knees and ask her, please, I will change. But this change takes some time. I remember it came to a point that I told her one time, listen, you're not going to get me anymore. You make your suitcase and you go, because I'm not going to promise you that I will never repeat it again. I have been trying my best, but still there is this power that somehow makes me emotionally aggressive sometimes, violent sometimes. And then I say things I should not say. Okay, so you can go, I'm doing my best, okay, but I'm not going to promise you anymore, because I have failed, all my promise, they have failed, So we need to be gentle with ourselves, and knowing that there are some vasanas that are really tough. Okay?
Arlindo, I was thinking about something I heard about these hard, fast vasanas that are like a child in the womb, and just having to wait for the proper time. Yeah. And I'm beginning to look at those kinds of vasanas like a mother would a child in the womb, with love. Yeah. Just like I approach the jiva with love now. Yeah. And just accept and cherish the whatever's, drawing me toward that fulfillment. Yeah, that's very nice. Very nice. Yeah. Did you understand, Miranda? You understand these teachings about the 3 types of vasanas? The ones that are really...
Yes.
Yeah. You probably heard.
Thank you very much.
So there are some vasanas that are like, a babe, fetus, it takes what it takes, 8, 9 months to come out, and you cannot push it. There are some vasanas that may take 10 years, like the case, as in the case that Ranvi likes to say, So the main thing is to know I'm not my vasanas. This all belongs to Ishvara. I have a certain degree of responsibility, in the relationship between these vasanas and me as the one who is receiving and the one who is responding to the field. So I have a degree of responsibility, but I know that it all belongs to Ishvara. So the sense of doership begins to melting away, Gradually it goes melting. This is Karma Yoga. It serves to cancel the sense of ownership, doership, because the sense of the ego sense of doership, authorship, it's something that owns also my vasanas, If I have this ego that has this habit of owning everything, it's on its vasanas. If it's good vasanas, it's going to be afflicted by a sense of pride. If it is bad vasanas, it's going to be afflicted. It's a sense of shame. Understand? So you don't want to be owning anything. You just want to be, as you are. Consciousness. So this is a good exercise. When next time the vasana come, you just understand, that it does not belong to you because you are free, limitless, unconcerned consciousness.
Thank you, Arlindo. Beautiful.
Welcome.
We are on Vedanta bus, just relax and put the suitcase on the place and relax and study on the ground and doing the job. Thank you.
Yeah, but when we relax in the bus, it's very important that we don't drink too much beer. We have to remain alert.
It's true.
Yeah, we just change our lifestyle, and then we keep going with the bus, developing more and more sattva, and and knowing that I can relax, I disown my luggage, my vasanas, my desires and fears. I disown. I no longer own on any of these. I relax, but it takes vigilance, effort, work, spiritual effort all the time. Nice lifestyle. Yeah. Because if we relax too much, some people say, "I'm just relax too much." It may be misleading as well. The notion, right?
Right. Thank you.
Anything else, Claudio?
Yes, I have also some questions, but maybe for the next time, because I have also a lot of questions. But,
you have to go now?
No, not really.
No, I mean, you can ask one question. If people need to go, they go. I can answer you.
Yeah, I more than a question. More than a question, I have to share that now that I'm dealing a lot with my old notions. As I tell you, I work a lot with the things like Vipassana and staying in the physical sensation, work with physical sensation. That maybe can be, like we say today, when we say that you are touched by the world, by things. So I work a lot with the physical sensation, because when you work with the physical sensation, you feel free from objects. Like you say, when we talk in Bergamo, we talk about that a little bit, and it was clarifying a little bit for me. But I invest a lot of my life in this, so I have to do now a lot of work for you know, integrate with Vedanta, to not to
Yeah.
integrate, but to understand, you know, to
To
separate
understand,
things that-
extend the values, the value of these techniques of yours, you know, understand the value and understand the limitations, and then you are good.
yeah,
What you can get, what you cannot get, and all these
yeah,
physical sensations, as you said that they free you from objects, right?
yeah,
But at the same time, they are much subtler kind or type of object itself, because any sensation is an object. You know that, right?
yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But when when I'm conscious, when I observe my sensation, you know, I can tell you what I feel in the past. Now it's more clear, but because I have more notions. But at the time, I don't realize the self, but I don't know how to say it, but I come to the point where I like feel that I objectify everything, also the jiva, I can say, but at the same time I don't realize consciousness at the time. You know, I never say, I am consciousness, but I could see like I have objectify everything, like I have surrendered to Ishvara in a way. I can say that. So, you know, I have to clarify what I feel in the past, because it was very strong for me. And with all these notions now, of course, now, like I said to you, no, these last weeks, I have clarified a lot of things. I clarify the fact that I was very attached to sattva, because like you know, like you, I was always searching a sattvic mind, and now I also, if I don't have a sattvic mind.
And what is the value? You still do those techniques yourself, right?
Sometimes I use it because
what is the value? Tell us the value. What you gain by doing that, from doing that?
I feel free from I feel detached from the problem that I have in the moment.
Yeah.
And it works when my mind is very disturbed, you know?
Yeah.
So, but when my mind is more sattvic, I use more karma yoga and self-knowledge.
That's correct. When the mind is too disturbed or more disturbed, you need a denser, more gross technique. So to bring
exactly
the mind from this level to a more subtle level. When you have a subtler level, a more subtle mind, when your mind is like that, and then you don't need to keep doing that exercise. That's good to bring the mind from this level of density to this level of more subtlety. When the mind is subtle, you need a more subtle tool, a more subtle sadhana. You understand?
Yeah.
So the problem is when you use these more dense techniques to bring the mind to a more subtle level, and then you remain there attached to the same tool that brought your mind, because the mind will never take you beyond that level. You understand? Did you realize that? It does not really take. When you are on the level of subtlety, and then you need to go into your next sadhana, whatsoever. If it is Vedanta, and then you start contemplating these teachings, your mind is now calm and clear and it's focused, and then you start bringing this knowledge about your true, independent, free nature, which is consciousness, which is the mind. So you know that now I have the mind that allows me to understand that I'm not the mind. Before I had the mind that would never be able to contemplate
of course,
the teachings that I'm not the mind. Now the mind is in a state in which I can contemplate, it can contemplate, or I can contemplate the teachings of the Upanishads. You understand? That way, there is no conflict, Claudio. You know, you just do this, and then you do that. And there comes a point that you don't need to do anything.
Okay. Yes, I feel this. I use it not so much like before. Now, and maybe in this day I don't use it at all, maybe, but at the same time I need to clarify everything, integrate the informations, because I invest a lot in my life. So we talk about that also, no? It's, when you have a lot of notions before, it's hard.
Yeah, understood. So you have an investment on those practice, on those sadhanas and so on. And understood. So it's these attachments is it's going to go. Keep in perspective this understanding that I try to simplify your question, you know. So that tool serves the purpose to bring your mind to a more sattvic state. And then you don't need those tools. When your mind goes back to mental agitation, disturbancing and affliction and so on, and then use that tool, you need that tool. Because to bring the mind, if the mind is in that state, what Vedanta does not really work.
Yeah.
You understand? So, and then you know that tool has a value, which is to bring your mind to a certain condition of which you can do your work of bhavana, manana, nididhyasana. So you need a mind which is, you know, I mean, in general, people, I begin in the spiritual world, in my entry gate was meditation. But absurd and so frustrating because you need a meditative mind in order to do meditation. And you want to begin to do meditation to get a meditative mind, but you need to have a meditative mind to begin to do meditation. Otherwise, meditation it's a hell of a frustration because, you know, you try, oh my God, this is impossible, this is BS, it does not work, you know, oh, my mind is not meditatable or whatever. So, and then what we need to do, we need to do some other techniques that helps my mind to become more fit to begin meditating. That's why Karma Yoga is the best. Karma Yoga is going to prepare the mind for Vipassana and Jnana Yoga. Vipassana Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Natural purifier of the mind. Understand?
I missed the description of the technique that he's using.
It's like Vipassana. I don't know if you know it. More or less Vipassana. You know, every time you have a problem, a disturbing thought or something, you can ask yourself which sensation produce this thought or this emotion in your body. So so you can observe this sensation, stay there, and the sensations is like dissolving. So, you know, it's like we talked before, no? You are touched by the world. So you can go to the event that touches you and like dissolve this touching in your body. And when you dissolve, you feel free. So it is good. You know, it can help a lot. And I do a lot of that for a lot of years. And it's interesting. But of course, I arrived to the point that I objectify everything. And then I realized that it was something that it was missing. So Vedanta comes to me, you know. This is a little bit the fact. And now I have to understand.
Yeah, all of this is very much useful, you know, to as a first stage of mental, you know, preparedness. You prepare the mind for Shravana Manana. So you need to bring the mind, calm down the mind a little bit, and then there are so many tools nowadays in the spiritual world, you know, all kinds of different tools. Calm the mind. Everybody enjoys a calm mind. Everybody does all kinds of spiritual work in the spiritual world for the sake of calm the mind. Why? Because a calm mind feels good. So when the mind is calm, we experience joy, peace, contentment, you know, satisfaction, bliss, mind, a calm mind. So everybody would pay any amount of money, especially if one is rich, to have a stable, you know, 24/7 calm mind. They say, okay, so I spent $100,000. I went there, I did this weekend or week, and now I have a calm mind for my entire life. It's really worth it. You know? The problem is that we know that the mind changes. You know, so to create this stable, calm mind by an effort such as the one you have been doing and you teach other people, or any other method, you understand, is something that produces calmness of mind, but it wears out after some time. You understand? Because the only thing that really establishes the mind in calmness is the understanding of the cause, roots, the cause of mental disturbance. You can go, it feels like I'm going to the really fundamentals here. So what was the event that took place? How did I feel this? How did I feel that? You can examine the previous events to understand how I developed this disturbing mind. And then that's going to help to calm down my mind a little bit. But the real fundamental cause of a disturbance mind is our desires and aversions. And the cause of our desires and fears is self-ignorance. Unless we begin working on the fundamental cause, understand? Fundamental problem. Unless we begin work on that, we're going to always be improving the mind, but the mind changes. Improving the mind, but the mind changes. It's like you want to take care of a field, and then you have to remove. Nowadays, the people cheat a lot, especially in USA. We got into. I was living there with the Roundup came about. It's a toxic, terrible toxic that goes into the water level, and now it's forbidden. But in the old days, so how are you going to remove all the weeds of a nice field, So you go there, you just cut it. Cut it. And when you see they grow even stronger, you go there, cut it. Well, and then you understand the only way is to go and sit down on the field on my lawn and then pull one of these weeds by hand, one from the roots. If there is a little piece of root inside, I'm talking about vasanas here. If I don't really neutralize the roots of a vasana, the vasana may sprouts again. So these weeds, I have to pull one because I want to resolve the problem at its fundamental cause, The only application of self-knowledge is going to resolve the mind and produce this calmness of mind, this overall calmness of mind. So these efforts that you do serves to bring the mind to a certain level. The frustration we get at some time is we understand that the moment I suspend my spiritual practice, my mind changes again. And then again, I experience the same kind of disturbance I used to experience before. So, and then there is a huge point of feeling, impotent, frustrated, helpless, and so on. So that's usually when Vedanta comes. But Vedanta, or the teachings of the Upanishads, is the only teaching that can really resolve the fundamental problem. What is the fundamental problem? Desires,
Vasanas.
likes, and dislikes. But what is the fundamental problem?
Ignorance.
Self-ignorance makes us running all over the place, like rats, and we call in the United States rat race. We run into gain, running to avoid, and so on, trying to calm the mind by the means of gaining and avoid, accomplishing it, and resolving problems all the time, trying to calm down the mind by the means of action. The only way to calm down the mind is by understanding my fundamental nature. And in my fundamental nature, as my fundamental nature, I am already whole, full, and complete, and nothing touches me, nothing affects me. Therefore, I don't need to keep running to gain, running to avoid, and develop all these huge vasanas that makes me again and again running to gain, running to avoid, and having in mind. You understand? So I need to go and work at the root problem, the fundamental problem, root cause. Okay? And then only then I can start understanding my true fundamental libre, the free and independent nature as consciousness. And then only then when that knowledge is clear, firm, and always present, and then all this mental disturbance, agitation derived by this ignorance-based vasanas, they subside, and then I experience calmness. But this calmness now is not an effort of a meditation of an action is the result of self-knowledge. We call it a mind resolved by the means of knowledge. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of its fundamental, free, independent, unconcerned nature as consciousness. So once you know that consciousness, you are no longer all agitated about trying to, you know, to control things, to have things your way, and so on. You understand?
Yeah.
That does not say that there is no value in what you are doing. You need to understand what you can gain with it, what you will never gain from it. You're going to gain a temporary resolution of the mind, and then the mind modifies again. And then you apply your sadhana, you resolve temporarily, and then again the mind gets disturbed. Until you really address the fundamental problem. The fundamental problem is self-ignorance that brings about this bunch, this loads of vasanas that are constantly disturbing the mind. You understand? Okay. So that was a long session today. I'm happy that I was up to it.
It was good.
Oh, everybody's on board still. Okie dokie. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, everybody. Nice.
Thank you.
Pleasure. I'm going to put those two satsangs, these and the previous one, in one email, and I send to you guys tomorrow, okay, or later on today. Many kiss, hugs, and
Thank you very much. Ciao.
ciao, ciao.
Thank you, Professor. Bye.
Ciao, ciao, Ruth. Ciao, Carol. Good to see you, smiley girl. You love your smile.
Bye.
Bye.